Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining our afternoon training session. Today, we're going to be going through our post-contracting estimating software that we call Estimata. And previously, we have gone through a way of setting up an estimated job with explosions. So we do have a pre-recording about that one. Today, I'm going to be going through importing a previously created estimator. So on Workplace not so long ago, Shane in our office has gone through and he's created an estimator for one of our standards, the Evoker. So I'm going to use that export and I'll show you how to drag that across and bring that into your own job. So we're sitting in the iGyro portal at the moment, and the first thing you'd obviously like to do is create a brand new job to house this estimator file in. So I'll create a new job by clicking the new button at the top right-hand corner, and it just prompts you for the job details briefly. So we'll call this one, or the first and last name we'll just call standard design. Now this part, the first and last name is not really important in this instance because this will form a standard design that you'll reference later in your own database. All right, but I will call this my standard, and we're basing this on an Evoker. Let's get the exact name, Evoker 195. And it's a facade 1 style that we're copying from. Now, this terminology here, where you're writing my space standard with a little dash or space dash space, and then the design name. It's a convention that we use for your own database that allows you to create your own standards, which ultimately, when you have iProxies against them, can form part of your export for your job list or your job pricing list. So I'm adopting that so that we can make use of this at a later date. So I'll save that job, and that'll bring us straight to the job details screen. And at a minimum, we've got to put a few little pieces of detail in here so that our estimator will work correctly. And an easy trap there is just not even putting, say, a site address, state and postcode in. So I'll quickly just create a job number here. I'm going to manually type this. Normally, if it was a real job, you hit generate and your job would generate the next logical number for your database. In this case, it's a standard, and I want to make an easy reference to this. All right, so our site address, we'll need to click on this button to open up the address details, and I'll make this New South Wales. And the reason why this is the minimum requirements here is that when you're working in your estimator file, you have a catalogue of priced items, and some of those items are priced depending on a region. So suppliers will have different prices depending on the location that your build is in. And generally that's supplied by your postcode, state and postcode. Right, job type, we'll just make this a standard iProx because that's what this is for. It'll keep that out of lots of your other reports as well. So I'll label that as a standard iProx. And standard design, I'll choose an Evoker. This doesn't have much impact on what we're doing today, but it will make it easy to search your database later for this file. Right, so I'll save that one. We didn't put a full address in, but you can see we've got our state and postcode there. All right, so to start working on our estimator file, we go to the Estimator tab. And this is a blank estimator, so there's nothing really in here. And the first thing you'll see that does look like it's populated is this middle pane here, and it has all of your cost centers in your database here. And essentially, to create a bill of quantities, you would go through each of these cost center, adding items into your bill of quantities, which ultimately become your purchase orders. So you would click on each of these cost centers and work through them. And you'll notice on the left-hand side here, that's your catalog of items. And as we're clicking through the cost centers, it filters out your items just to the relevant items to that cost center. All right, now in this one here, I'm just looking at energy and thermal report. That's the cost center there. And it's only showing 2 items, and they're just the quotes and the headings. This little eye icon is hiding items that do not have a price. So there's a few reasons why that might be the case, but we can show all the items regardless of whether they have a price or not, just by clicking that little eye, and it'll give you all of these items in here. All right, so we want to add an item into this workup here. We just double click the item and that will come into here. All right, so this particular database just doesn't have pricing for that. All right, so double click to add. Now, a new feature we've added just recently at a request from lots of estimators is being able to add more than one item at a time. So previously we had to double click on each item. If you had lots of items, could be quite time consuming. We can now click an item, control click others to highlight them, or click and shift click or highlight all of those in between those two locations. And you can right click and add item to bill of quantities. Just wait a moment, it's added all of those items for you without needing to double click them all the time. All right, so we do have a workup tab here as well. So each individual item has their own workup in here. I think I've probably picked a cost center of some items that don't have workup already preloaded in them, but you can store all sorts of things in here. If you, bit of a shortcut for you, you type the word hide inside these square brackets. Anything after that that you type is an internal comment. So you may write things in this to let others know in your business the reason why you've come to quantify a particular item or why it's in here. And that will also not show on a purchase order once the purchase order is generated from this. So any text before this is visible and will become part of your purchase orders when you create those. Alrighty, now, so just looking at these items here, we can click an item and we have a colored chart here. So generally estimators like to flag things off if they've completed them or not. So as you go through each of your items and you've worked out a price for an item, this is just going to be a manual price for us. And you're happy with that one, you can just mark it as green just so that you know for your own reasons, your own purposes, that you have checked that item and you're happy with that to go out in an order. All right, you may mark them say yellow just to flag for you need to review that a little bit further. Obviously, you might have a red color just to say that you haven't even looked at that at all. All right, so the cost center will become whatever the top color is in your items here. So when you get a full list of items in here, this will be quite colorful, the cost center chart in here. Alrighty, so I'll continue the overview here. Now we've got our recipe variables. Now I briefly mentioned before about an explosion. So an explosion is a way that you can, let's pull that up briefly, use estimating recipes. So all of these are special recipes in your catalog and they contain lots of items. So you'll have a standard item recipe just here. You can add that to your job and explode that out. And it will use these variables to work out what items should be exploded out to the different cost centers. So we have a quick look at that. There is nothing in here at the moment, but I'll fix that in just a moment. So the recipes are based on what recipes you've added to the job. So I'll just add a couple in. All right, that's 3 recipes added. So now we should have some variables to enter. So because we've added those in, it's asking now for some questions here. So it's asking whether you've got a single story house or a double story. So in this case, we'll say 0 for single story, 1 for brick veneer. Matter of just reading through all of those questions and answering appropriately. So we do have another video about explosions, so I won't go into that today. That's just a quick overview of what that feature is. And our global variables have nothing in here either, but they're essentially items that get added to your purchase orders when you create the purchase order. It will pull from those variables, and they may be items such as color for an item. the color of your color bond roof, for example. So we might find a couple of those once we do an import in a moment. Righty, so I'll go through this menu, and this is really where we're starting today. We're going to import from a previous file. So in this case, Shane has created an evoker. So I'll choose the import option, and it does warn us that if we import, it's going to wipe everything that we've done. So all these items we just added as a test just a moment ago will be wiped out. All the variables will disappear, and they'll be pulled in from this new file that we have. So this one I've downloaded previously from Workplace, but when you get your own library going, you can export your own files just to have them safe. So I'll drag and drop this file in, drag it into here. I'll import that file. Just a moment, we have a full job loaded in. So this particular job, it was a standard design. It's priced based on just our standard inclusions. So it probably won't have things like your driveway and curtains and floor coverings to an extent. So you will need to go through this cost center by cost center and see what's in there, and obviously make adjustments for your own business. But you can see a lot of green, there's some yellow there, some red items. But just to highlight some issues with the pricing. So I'm just looking at some labor items. All right, so these have all come in with zero pricing. So generally labor is going to be a local labor rate. So each database will have their own local labor pricing. Lots of the supplier prices will be okay. They'll be accurate from your own database based on your location, because we've got national supplier pricing. All right, so what I might do is I'm just going to reprice this one here just to try and get some prices in. I'll choose the tools reprice option. And in this case, I'm just going to do just this cost center. And I'll go through these options again in a second. But I'll untick the setting the price level. I'll click on reprice. And what that's done there is gone through into your own database. It's found the prices for these local items and given you a price. Right, so all right, so I've just cleared the filter there. Obviously, I'm typing in here just to filter down. So you want a particular cost center, you can type, say, 450 for lockup, or the word lockup. That's filtering your cost centers there. Now, just take a note of this value here. This is your bill of quantities total value, 122,000 odd. And we're going to reprice this entire job for your database. So I guess there's a few reasons why you might do this. You're importing a file. So this particular one come from a totally different database. You'd want to reprice it with your own pricing. Also, in the future, you may have created your own price files. You've exported those. It may have been some time ago. It could be 6, 12 months ago that you created the file, and you obviously want to bring that up to today's pricing. So let's use that reprice option again. And we've got a few options here. So this reprice scope. So previously we just did a cost center reprice, which is just that one particular cost center that we had selected. So we'll go through and we'll do an entire job reprice. So that'll go through all of the cost centers and reprice for us. Now these options here for overriding price locks and manual prices. Manual prices generally they don't change. So if an item's been added into this bill of quantities as a manual price, we're not going to try and clobber that with a file or from a price from our database. We'll leave that as a manual price. Most of the time you probably find it was manual because there wasn't a price available for that particular item and it was just looked up. Maybe it was a phone call or a quote. All right, and price locks will be if you've already created a purchase order for a particular load and cost center. It'll lock the price down. This will override that and allow you to change the price even though that's already locked to an order. So generally you'd leave those unticked anyway. We're going to leave this set price level unticked as well, but that will allow you to switch. So if we say set the price level to suppliers, it means it'll change all of your items pricing to suppliers level. or we might decide to change them all to the local demo coast region. So again, they'd be quite destructive to what you're doing. So if you're going to be setting price levels, I would only do that on a per cost center basis, just so you can see the difference it will make. I won't set that one. I'll do a reprice for that for the entire job. So that might take 20 seconds or so. We'll just let that do its thing there. But notice the price in the background. So I've got 122,000 at the moment. Once this reprice is finished, I'm expecting that'll be significantly higher. There we go. So we've jumped up to over 200,000 now. So that's gone through and pulled in from your local catalog into this bill of quantities. All right, so this is just a particular cost center here. It's got a supplier price. I'll just see that repricing one more time on this cost center and show you what would happen if we change the price level here. So at the moment, that item's set to suppliers. If we change that just to this local price level, it's gone through and changed that item there to demo. So I had no price for that. Obviously, that's wrong, and we won't find any information for that, no pricing. So we'll change that back again. So you can either reprice it again back to supplier, or we'll just choose supplier from the list and hit enter. All right, so it's already selected the company for us for that. So if we double click that, we could change that from this default company here to we've got subcontractor as the other option here. And I'll hit enter there. Let's find another cost center. That's a good one here. So this one has got, it's got two loads here. So you can see this column here is indicating load 1, and there's one item at the bottom, and that has got a load 2. And that one's just a contingency allowance. This will probably actually show us a good example of a workup. If we look at that one. So it's just a note for your business. So anyone that comes into here can read this note saying that it's an allowance only. Don't send this purchase order out or to a trade or supplier. So it's just an internal allowance, this one. Right, again, so this is assigned to Bunnings, but we've got a few other options here. This is Bunnings New South Wales. We could assign to Bunnings ACT or the supplier to be advised. Now, these are set up in your admin screen. So if I wanted to add, say, MITRE 10, for example, keep typing. It's not finding it because we've got a default list for this particular cost center set up. But I know that MITRE 10 is in our database, our list of contacts. So if I search all contacts, it'll show up in here for us. Okay, that allows you to override your defaults to that cost center. Again, that set everything back to 0 pricing because we don't have pricing for these items in MITRE 10. So we'll shoot back to Bunnings Trade. But I should show you how that's set up though. So we go into admin, just right clicking, and I'll open that in a new tab. That was the cost center setup. We were in cost center 450. This is the setup for that cost center here. And these are all the default suppliers that show up in that list. I can double click that. I can remove an item if we didn't want Bunnings ACT anymore. And I could add MITRE 10 in if we wanted that to be permanently available in the dropdown. All right, so next time we're using that cost center, MITRE 10 will be available for us straight away. We'll just I'll refresh this screen just so we get that new setup. Load that again. All right, so now we double click here, we'll have MITRE 10 in that list there, and we've removed Bunnings ACT. Now, we did look at global variables before, but there was nothing in there. So I'll open this now, and we should have quite a few things in here. So here's a good example, brick mortar color. So it allows you to say anywhere where you require this brick mortar color to show on your purchase orders, you would use this global variable. And whatever you type in here is what shows up in the purchase order. So in this case, we've got brick mortar color off-white, brick joint type is ironed. So you really do need to, before you finish or start creating your purchase orders, you would need to go through and complete all of these global variables, just so that when you create your purchase orders, they're filled in and it's not just a blank item. Alrighty, now to create a purchase order. So we're creating it per load here. So in this case, if we did want to send this item out, even though we flagged not to do so, we'd need to select a supplier. So I'll just select this one, supplier to be advised by PM. All right, so we've got two loads here, two different suppliers. So we'll select the first load. We've got our buttons here for logging and unlocking, logging and unlogging, and that will create your purchase orders. So I'll tick that log button. All right, I'll give you a date that that's ordered, and it's just got a little tick box next to each of these items to indicate that that's been logged and ordered already, and we can no longer edit that item. Whereas this one here, load 2, is still unlocked. We can double click and still edit these prices and quantities. All right, once we're happy with that one too, we can log that order as well. All right, so we just created 2 orders, and they will show up in the orders tab here. Alrighty, so now this order is good to go. So if we've already receiving invoices in, this would at this point in time, it would still register this price in the accounts payable module to invoice against. This is a new feature here as well. So when invoices come in, we've got a quick link here that'll link through to the accounts payable module, and if there were some invoices against that order, they would show in here. So it's just a quick link, a quick filter to show you what made up the pricing there. I've got off track a little bit, but you would also want to go through, prior to sending this to your suppliers or trades, you would need to generate the purchase order PDF as well. So each one of these that has not already been generated, there's a button here to do so. You can do one at a time by clicking each one, or if you shift click and right click in this load column, you get a few more options, and we can choose the generate PDF orders option. And that'll do both at the same time. All right, once they're created, these will be links straight through to that PDF. So we open one of those. This is what your order looks like. All right, and there's a couple of buttons here. This one just gives you the detail, like the line item detail for that order. And the next one is the new email button. So this is how you would email that off to your suppliers. This little exclamation mark is just indicating that we've got some automation behind the scenes here for attachments. So if I go back to, this is the cost center setup screen again. And on the right-hand side of this, there's a little attachment button. If I click on that, this is our list of cost center filters in your database. These items here, these particular ones for purchase orders, for this cost center 450, whenever we send out a purchase order, it's trying to automatically attach these files. So it's trying to attach the site safety rules and the construction plans. Right, so we have other videos around how these naming conventions work, but essentially the construction plan needs to have the word construction in the file name and a .pdf extension. And if that's loaded in the right place, in the attachments, when we click on new email, it will have that in the attachments here. So the exclamation mark is just telling us that we're missing something. So we're missing construction plans in this case. All right, so if you go away and you'd find your construction plans, you could load that into your attachments, into the drawings folder. That exclamation would go away, and then you'd be right to send off your email. I've just taken out the email to Bunnings, but essentially you would just click on the send button. That'll send off your order, and that will be available in your emails tab now. This point's in a pending state. It hasn't finalized sending, but at some point that will show up when you refresh the screen to let you know that that's complete. But it gives you a full record, and everyone in your business has a full record of the emails that you've sent. All right, now if I guess we need to change a purchase order, we would need to come back into Estimator here and we need to unlog the order. So we'd come here and we'd use the unlog option. All right, so just unlog that. It's taking out the order date and all those tick boxes are unticked. But look back on the orders screen, that order has also disappeared from here as well. Essentially, we're recreating the order. You need to be careful if you do this because if you've already sent this out to your suppliers, they may already be actioning that purchase order. So you would need to communicate effectively with them that that's the case, that you've changed it. Alrighty, so you can go ahead and make your change if you need to. Okay, and then we'd just be relogging that order. Oops, just need to select that load there, log that one. Go back to orders. Right, and we would need to generate that order again. So we've got a few little images here. So of highlighting over this, it's a little picture of a calendar in yellow. So it's a bit of a warning for us to indicate that the email was sent, but it was sent prior to the change that we've just made, which is why it's highlighted in orange. So we'll generate that new PDF based on the new values that we've set. And that orange really is an indicator that we need to send the email again so that the supplier or the trade has the latest up-to-date purchase order. So I'll go through and I'll send that again. All right, so we've still got the record that we sent the original one here, and this is the new one that we're sending now. And once that's finished sending on your orders screen, it will actually pop up and there'll be a little black calendar to let you know that it was sent on a particular date, and it's indicated just in general black text, just because there's no problems with when it was sent. Alrighty, so I've really gone through a full overview there. If there's any questions, please let me know. All right, looks like we've covered that okay. So thank you for joining everyone. We will see you again in a fortnight's time.